Here in Central Florida, Zone 9, the temperatures are now getting into the 90s every day. It's also raining almost every day, at least for a few minutes. And that means one exciting thing. It's peanut planting time. Growing peanuts is pretty easy, but to do so successfully, you need to throw out most of what is commonly advised about this crop. Here are some myths that need to be busted in order to get the harvest you're looking for. Myth number 1. Peanuts don't need fertilizer. In reality, peanuts are some of the heaviest feeders out of all the crops that are commercially produced. Even though peanuts are legumes and therefore nitrogen fixers, they are very heavy feeders. They not only need supplemental nitrogen, they need plenty of phosphorus and potassium. They also need loads of calcium. In order to get the full benefit of the peanut's nitrogen fixing capabilities, they need to be inoculated with a special bacterial inoculant. This tends to sell out every year at peanut planting time. I was just checking around for myself yesterday, and the only available peanut inoculant was in a bag big enough to treat like 100 pounds of peanut seeds. Considering I only plant 3 small beds with peanuts, that's way too much. In order to make up for the lack of inoculant, I will need to lay down nitrogen fertilizer about as if the peanuts were a lawn. Myth number 2. Peanuts need loads of space between each plant. A lot of peanut instructions meant for the home gardener will tell you to put way too much space between each plant. They'll tell you to put maybe 8 inches between each seed or to thin them to that amount. That's ridiculous. When I first decided to start planting peanuts, I looked at instructions meant for commercial growers. And commercial growers will put 3 to 4 inches between each plant. That's 4 seeds per linear foot. Or to put it another way, for each foot in a row. Putting even more seeds is expected, usually about 2 inches apart, and these seeds are not thinned later. There are a lot of plants per row. However, they will also tell you to put 3 feet between each row, but that's so they can fit a tractor between the rows. Apparently that lines up really nice with, say, a commercial harvester or fertilizer sprayer that gets towed behind a tractor. At home, you're not doing that either, so load them in there. About a foot between each row and 2 inches between each seed in the row. And don't thin. This will indeed bring less peanuts per plant, but you'll get so many more plants in that it more than makes up for it. Unless you're willing to be so picky that you can have absolutely perfect conditions, that's how to do it. Yes, the weak ones will disappear. You will end up with less plants at the end of the season than you started with at the beginning of it. And it won't matter. The survivors will just grow more peanut pods in the space left by the ones who got crowded out. Myth number 3. Peanuts start growing slowly. Even some peanut seed sellers will give this nonsense that peanut plants start growing at a slow rate. Some even suggest planting interspersed cover crop plants in between them. Don't do that. Peanuts actually grow like mad. The speed is tremendous right from the start. When they come up, they have a few leaves all folded together. As soon as they hit the light, those leaves will spread out. I'd say you only have to bother weeding for a week or two, assuming you are getting good rains every day and you planted them close enough. If you're not getting that much rain, turn on the water twice a week and let her rip. They grow almost as fast as an invasive species, and they will keep going like mad all season. With close enough planting, as I've already mentioned, the ground will be covered with peanut leaves. If you have a spreading variety, they'll definitely be all over. The chance of a weed getting in there and getting enough light to get going after the ground is covered is remote. Usually by the end of the season, I'll have 1 or 2 weeds that got in there and really got going. And when it's 93 degrees out, no, I am not going out there to do anything about it. The presence of literally 1 or 2 weeds in a bed does not significantly affect the yield. It may decrease the yield from the plant that's right next to it. That's not enough to be a problem. Definitely don't plant intentionally some crop in between with your peanuts. They need all the rooting space they can get so the nuts can develop. Myth number 4. The ground should be treated with gypsum. In some areas, it may be okay to use gypsum, but in Florida, you don't want to do that. That's because you might actually be getting local gypsum or phosphogypsum. Floridian phosphogypsum is radioactive, and I don't know about you, but I don't want anything in my garden that I know is radioactive. The solution? Use bone meal instead. Peanuts absolutely need calcium. They also need phosphorus. They need a lot of both. Bone meal has a lot of both. Unlike phosphogypsum from Florida, bone meal is a byproduct of the beef industry, which means it comes from cattle that were safe to eat. It's not radioactive. It's not poisonous. It doesn't have things that are, quote, okay, only because it was convenient for some Florida fertilizer company to say that. Throw several handfuls of bone meal in with your fertilizer and compost and mix it into the top few inches of soil in your garden. That covers the need for calcium and phosphorus without introducing anything iffy. Myth number 5. Peanut plants die back when it's time to harvest. No, they don't. It's as simple as that. They'll get kind of sickly looking, but left alone, they will keep growing as long as they can, which is long after harvest time. Okay, now that the myths have been busted, the rest of peanut growing is pretty basic. As I was just saying, they need lots of calcium and phosphorus. The reason for this is because those elements are required to have good pod fill. In other words, they're what make it so that when you open your peanut pods at the end of the season, there are actually nuts in there. No empty pods. Peanuts also need ground that is moist and fluffy. One of the best ways to get this is to mix compost. I use bagged manure compost, some peat or coco coir, fertilizer, and bone meal all together. And if your budget allows it, just layer about 8 inches of this on top of your dirt, and then you don't have to care what your underlying soil is like because everything will be happening above it. Then plant your peanut seeds. If you have a predictable afternoon rain like Florida does during the growing season, you can just ignore the seeds after that and nature will water them enough to have them come up in about a week, maybe 3 days. If Murphy's Law comes along and makes your garden dry that week, then go ahead and turn on the water. If you're going to irrigate manually or on a timer, you'll want to lay down about an inch of water twice a week. Varmints. A lot of animals love peanuts. Around here, the most troublesome varmints are rabbits. If I plant peanuts in the ground, rabbits will come and completely level an entire row within an hour or so of them noticing them. They eat the plants, not the nuts. This happens at the dawn hour. I can go to bed, peanuts growing fine. About 2 to 3 weeks up, and at dawn the next morning, leveled. My solution to this has been to plant in tall raised beds. My raised beds are between 34 and 36 inches tall, depending on the brand, and that's too high for rabbits to jump up to. Without my raised beds, I would not be able to grow peanuts here, period. Fortunately, other common peanut-stealing varmints such as squirrels, chipmunks, and birds have not realized what they were looking at. If they did, I'd have a really hard time. I might not be able to grow peanuts at all. I do make sure to never leave any clues out for them to look further. No leftover peanuts left exposed. No curing the peanuts outside. Nothing to let a squirrel know what's underneath that boring-looking green foliage. When to harvest? Peanut plants do not die back completely, at least not here in Florida, so you don't want to wait for that. Instead, the peanuts mature not all at once, but on a bell curve. Some will mature right away, a lot will mature close together after that, and a few will not be mature at harvest time. This happens on each plant. What you want to do is time your harvest for when most of them are mature, which means that yes, the oldest, most mature peanuts will probably be sprouting when you harvest them or about to. But there will be a lot that are at the perfect maturity level. There will also be a few tiny ones that just aren't ready yet. There's no way to get them all perfect at once. That's just not how peanut plants mature their pods. What you want to do is dig around one test plant. Pick a couple of the pods that look as mature as most of the rest of them. Open those up. The inside of the pod should be getting dark. That means they're ready. Haul up all the plants at once. If you have your soil right, in terms of soil density, you shouldn't need any garden fork, trowel, or shovel. Just pull 'em up by the roots. Pull up the whole plant. Then fish around by hand in your garden for any pods that have fallen off the plant. You'll get most of them. No matter whether you use a tool or not, there's going to be a few peanuts that fall off into the dirt, will not be found, and they'll start growing. Don't get excited about the ones that start growing, because by now it's the end of the season and there won't be enough time before winter. About curing. Peanuts need to be cured for about 2 weeks after they're pulled out of the ground. There are several ways to do this. They can be hung indoors, left on a rack to dry, and apparently some people can even leave them in windrows outside without having them all being eaten by the local wildlife. However, I've found it best to let them dry up in the back of my car. It's a hatchback-style car. I just open the hatch, throw in the freshly harvested plants, slam the hatchback down, and leave them there for 2 weeks. This keeps them from being eaten by animals or birds. It also makes it so any insects that are in with them don't get in the house. And other than a fairly strong planty smell, it's fine. Once the 2 weeks are up, I open the back, come out with a bucket, yank the nuts off the plants and put them in the bucket, throw the plants themselves into the compost bin, bring the nuts inside, and the day after that, it's peanut brittle day. Speaking of peanut brittle, the varieties of peanuts that are best for that are not the same ones that are good for boiling or eating as snacks. For peanut brittle, I prefer Tennessee Red Valencia peanuts. They have a strong flavor that stands out even after they've been mixed with corn syrup, sugar, and butter. Valencias aren't as sweet or mild as Virginia Jumbo, and that's what makes them so great for brittle. However, if you want to boil your peanuts, you'll want Virginia Jumbo or a similar variety, and Spanish peanuts are good for eating roasted as snacks. Another thing to consider when choosing a peanut variety is how long it takes them to mature and whether or not you need to hill them. Tennessee Red Valencia are very fast maturing for peanuts, with 110 days given as their maturity date. They also don't need hilling, which is great because the last thing I want to do is stand outside at 90-degree heat hilling things up. With these I can just plant them, make sure they get enough water. I only have to weed them for the first couple of weeks, and then I can just forget them until October. October is the best time to harvest peanuts. Waiting longer than that, you'll tend to see some sprouting in the garden, and then you'll get more peanut plants instead of peanuts to eat. In my area, the best time to plant peanuts is between mid-May and mid-June. That said, I always plant peanuts in early to mid-June. That's because I still have other things growing in the beds before then. This year it's garlic that needs to stay in the beds until June, so the space won't open up until then. That's all for now. Happy peanut growing, and subscribe to see more.